But you didn't vote for that one when you had the chance. You voted for this bad boy. Also joining us on the couch, you know her as Nerdist.com's editor-in-chief, Rachel Hine. Hey.
Hey.
Can you please show off your hair clip? Because it's the best thing I've seen today.
It's skeleton hand.
It's like
Too
going
scary.
first base with a skeleton. He's
Too
like,
scary.
come
Yeah,
here,
oh.
child.
That's first base?
For me.
Touching hair? Okay.
You are joining us. Of course, hopefully you've read up to the first 10 chapters of this book. Hit us up in that chat. Let's get into it.
Yeah.
Let's get our wrinkle on, says Plague Wind. Let's get our wrinkle on.
Not you too. I'm so against that one. We better do it. Oh, are you ready to play the game? Are you ready to play one? That's the whole point of this book.
You.
That's it.
That's us. That's all of us.
All
Man,
right.
so have we all read this before, or
No.
you have not?
This is your first time.
My first time. I've never read it. And you guys have read it before?
Okay.
I've
This
read it
will be
before,
interesting.
listened to it before, so this is technically my third go. Now,
Listened by Will Wheaton
Yes.
is the audiobook
who I
narrator.
rate. I think he does a great job. So Rachel and I had a little chat skis beforehand, and we realised how different it is reading this book the second time. The first time, this is my impersonation of me reading the book the first time. That was fun, right? That's how that went. Now it's. He's got some things to say, Ernest Cline, who only wrote the book in 2011. So this is a very, very new book. He's written a second one since Armada. Don't bother.
Is it a sequel to this?
No.
No.
Oh, it's a separate, okay.
So
This is not a series. This is a one and done.
it is
That's
a
it.
one and
I'm assuming
done.
the ending of the story is going to end at the end of this book.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
So it's Armada's totally separate, and some of the critiques that I've heard about this book, which we can get into, I think actually really more apply to Armada
Yes.
than this, which is that because they both have a lot of pop culture references, specifically 80s geeky pop culture references, which are our bread and butter in the
Very
worlds that we
appeasing.
all live in
on.
and work in here, Nerdist, Geek and Sundry, Geek Bomb, like that's our day to day. And so I don't think that this particular book rests on that. I think that it elevates it
I
and
agree.
it adds to it. But I think the first time I read it was the same. I read it so
Yes.
fast. And this actually is a book that got me back into reading because
Right.
I got my degree in English and just spent years and years
Brag
and years
about it.
reading and
You could
Well.
have done something with your life, but here you are.
no. Oh, me?
we're all
Absolutely. I know.
but I just, when you do something for like work or school and you get like bogged
Oh,
down
yeah.
by reading all the time, and I had to read a lot of like not super fun stuff, and then freelance writing and doing stuff, and had just dropped off and wasn't reading for fun anymore. And my boyfriend recommended this book to me, and I read it in
Yeah.
like one sitting almost.
Yeah.
Just couldn't get enough of it. Gave it to my little brother, who was like looking up all the
Gave it to
references.
my bigger brother,
Yeah.
who loved it. Yeah.
That's fun.
And
That's-
this got
yeah.
me back into it, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna go back and look at all the sci-fi and fantasy that I've missed in the past couple years. So it's really weird to come back and read it and think, oh man, I zipped, because I mean, I was hooked from the beginning. The world building in this
Yes.
is so great.
Yes.
And you guys were saying that you weren't as familiar with the pop culture references the first time you read it, and now that you know more?
I mean, mine I haven't become like an editor of a nerd website.
Sure, yeah.
So for mine,
Yeah.
I mean, I was born in the 90s, 86. So anything kind of before that came out, like I wasn't the 16-year-old putting the quarters in the arcade.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like I was a Nintendo
It's safe to say we all
64
grew up in
girl.
the 90s, so
Yeah.
we have
Yes.
it's ours is not Commodore 64, but literally like Super Nintendo, N64,
Nintendo 64.
PlayStation 1,
Yeah.
Yes.
Sega Genesis. That's where we're at. Okay, yeah.
Maybe that'll be the sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh gosh, and they update it. But yeah, I think now.
It'll be called Reboot. Never mind.
Oh, don't do that.
Oh, they should do that. They should do a movie of that.
Don't,
They should do a reboot movie.
Hector,
Mine was a
don't put
joke.
that bad
They
juju
should
out
do
into
it.
the world.
Like, but just
They're
make it
listening.
good. Just make it good. That's all. It's not hard. Reboot was not good. Make it good.
But it tried.
Is
was
it
a
not hard?
pioneer
Like,
of
it's-
3D. We digress. So what is this book all about? Well, we spoke about Ernest Cline, who'd actually previously written the film Fanboys, who
Mixed bag for me. Mixed bag for me.
Right.
But I loved things about that movie so much, and it got so much of geek culture so right.
Exactly. And
Great.
The guy who hosts my Dungeons and Dragons every single week directed Fanboys.
Oh, great! Who directed Fanboys?
Kyle Newman.
Kyle Newman. That's great.
yeah.
Oh, yes.
Great cast. I mean,
Legitimate nerd.
for sure. Oh, everybody involved. It seemed like everybody involved in that
Oh,
movie. Legitimate nerd.
mad nerds.
So yeah.
So now that the table is set, let's dine in and discuss what we thought of the first part of the book. We set it up. It is the year 2045, and that's called the near distant future. So this is something that we could actually live to see the day of. So it's all about a little kid who's now 18. His name's Wade Watts. He's orphaned. He lives in poverty. He basically hides behind the laundry, like the washing machine, or he finds his own solace finding a structure built in with all these abandoned cars, and he powers up his own computer to something called the Oasis. Now this is a virtual reality that has taken over the world. You log in and everything happens in this, including millions of worlds, different worlds from different fantasy and sci-fi movies,
So cool.
TV
I know.
shows.
Come on.
I know.
Come on.
Everything I wish that was true. It is true in this, which
Yep.
is why it's so much. It's obvious why you would want to spend time in the Oasis instead of real life, and that's kind of what this story is all about. That shift in virtual reality to actual reality.
Got so many thoughts about this whole thing. So many thoughts.
Especially because it's this dystopian future that they're living in, and I think reading it now, I got a bigger chill down my spine than I did
Hits the nail on the
reading it
head.
a few years ago. And
Sure.
I don't know if that's just the world right now, but just looking at they've got an economic crisis,
Probably
going to
happen. Probably going to happen.
Everyone is living in poverty.
Probably already started
Just
happening.
Trailers.
Yeah.
Love
to
that.
things called stacks, which
That's
you
the
can see
cover.
on the book. Yeah, they literally.
Before I even read the book, I knew this cover, and I
Yeah.
thought this was an amazing image.
Yes. Yep.
And I was like, I cannot wait to see this imagery in a film to really scare the shit out of some people.
Yeah.
That might not be aware of some. I'm like, I get it. It's in the future. This is going to be great. But then I'm seeing some of the behind-the-scenes photos of the movie. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. And I'm like, I don't think they're doing this. I think they're filming in London, probably because of tax breaks with this
Well, I
movie. And
think
it's
that was that of the actual stacks though?
not the stacks, but
'Cause
like the neighborhood that the kid lived in. So I'm hoping they're going to CG some stacks or something.
Oh.
Like, I think they're changing up how he lives.
Is it? But we read through. Did we read through to chapter 10 or up to chapter 10?
I read through chapter 10. I'm waiting to read chapter 11.
Okay. Okay.
So you think they're filming a different part of
So
the
it might
book
be when he gets. We'll get
to
there. But
Middletown?
Mm-hmm.
Better be.
Maybe.
Right.
But making it look like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Better
you
be.
Can do that.
Again, according
Middle America is such a big part of like.
It
Yeah.
is, and I looked up really quickly, like on IMDb and Wikipedia, whatever, and they were saying they're filming in London and they're making it seem like dystopian near future Oklahoma, which is where he lives.
Wow.
So again, maybe we haven't seen
Maybe
the pictures
sets,
of that
maybe
set.
they're doing, yeah.
I hope, but I'm just like, you got to get the
Sets
stacks in there.
tone
Yeah.
Right away.
Sets the
of,
tone.
It's on the cover for a reason. It says everything that you need to know. It's like, life is shit. And of course, escapism, which is something that I'm very fond of.
He's literally escaping.
Every part of escape, you just
escape
nailed
into
it.
another world. You can be anyone you want to be. You can look however you want to look.
Yes, and I noticed how there is a corporation which we'll get into that want to monetize the game. Not only that, but also remove anonymity. And there's something that Wade finds absolute solace in. How he feels whole is that he has his anonymity in there. Something that I'm not a fan of online. Own it if you
that's
say it.
Fair.
Can we talk about that for a second? Because that was the thing I was really struggling with too, reading this book, is that the book, and also real quick, Java Book Geek Girl says that she was looking up references because she's also a child of the 90s and was having to look up stuff, but is still really enjoying it. I think just really quickly, the book does a really good job of not bogging you down with references to the point where you're not understanding the story, but giving people like, then look this up, and that's fine. But back to the anonymity of the internet for a second. As somebody who is on social media and on Twitter specifically, I am very much against anonymity on the internet. I think that it is cowardly. I think it's a bad thing.
caused
I
a
think
lot
it
of
leads to
problems.
fake news, and I think it leads to the state of the world right now. Literally, I think it's like the worst thing possible. I understand that part of what the book is saying and what a lot of people will say is that there are people who really need it because of their circumstances in their life and because of their social anxiety, and I get all of that, but I've gotten to a point where I'm like, no, internet's too dangerous. Everybody needs to be face value all the time. And we need to focus on other things in terms of raising kids to deal with social anxiety, in terms of equipping people and young people especially to learn how to deal with that stuff that we're not doing in favor of we have to keep our privacy and our security and I'm like, no, the internet needs to be completely transparent to me.
Well, I think you see that too in Wade a little bit. We were saying that when I first read it, I didn't pick up as much of how angry he is.
Yeah.
And you see that he's been bullied, he's been living in poverty, he's lost his parents, he's stuck with this aunt who's just using him for like food stamps basically, or the government payout.
Sucks.
And I think part of it too is that his whole reality and everything that he is because the Oasis is this open source, free wealth of knowledge. And that you can be in there and be whoever you want to be. And I think that concept is something to be celebrated, but the problem that hopefully, you dive into in this book is that it is a fine line of whether or not that's a good thing, because I think it is good to not judge people based on their actual appearance, and anyone can be who they want to be. But once you don't know who someone is and they can't be held accountable for their actions,
That's it.
That's
responsibility.
It's
in what you
accountability.
do.
Yeah.
It's accountability. So again, okay, hell yeah, Hector, thanks. Yeah, again, there's even a little section where Wade describes his physical appearance in the real world, and he's like, I'm fat, I'm overweight, and it's because I sit
acne.
right. I've got acne, and so my avatar is like me, but a little bit taller, no acne, really good muscles, and all of these things that I totally understand. And I'm reading this,
I've
and I'm like,
done
this
that.
is heartbreak. We've all
My
done that.
avatar, I made the perfect
Come
version
on.
of me for Elder Scrolls Online,
Come
and
on.
it took me like 4 hours to realize I made an identical Taylor Swift. That was embarrassing for me.
And so I totally get that, and I think that it's different when the game is described as just basically being a second reality that everybody spends their time in. If this was
it's the real. I mean,
it's the real world.
The
It's Facebook,
currency,
it's Twitter.
But the currency in the Oasis
The highest value
is the
dollar.
highest than
Yeah.
anything else, and people work in there and people go to school in there. But another issue that you see is that while he can read and watch movies, and that was the element that I really liked
I
of,
love
of
that.
access, of education, an actual free education for anyone no matter where you are,
Yeah.
and being exposed to art, which I think is really important for kids and just
And-
keeps
and
getting cut from schools, which is
the
crazy.
Yes, the Willy Wonka character in this book, forgetting the guy's
Halliday.
name, Halliday. He gave the laptop computers that are for education for school purposes free. Even though to get into the Oasis it's 25 cents, he gave them to everybody for free, including I think they described children in Africa. Like everybody around the world would have one of these
So
so
you
that
can
they can
have
get that
access.
education. That's what the internet
And
should
the
be.
reason why he Wade enrolled into the Oasis was because the government funding for the actual physical
Yeah.
public school system was
Ugh.
depleted to the point where they were like trying to send the kids online to find free education, which would have been better anyway.
Too real. Yeah.
But I think with the Oasis, like we are one kind of people which is obsessed with pop culture and geek culture, and like if given the libraries of absolutely everything, I wouldn't be like, today I want to know about Sophocles, or
Of course
you know,
not.
I'd be
Yeah.
like, oh, let me do another watch of Buffy for the seventh
Yes.
time. You know,
Sorry.
you're like, that was okay. I didn't plan this.
Yeah.
I didn't plan this.
Whoa!
Oh my God, it's like I knew.
I got really excited.
But you have to keep in mind that there are people that are starved for information and knowledge, and that would actually use that.
Yeah.
But you understand the appeal of the Oasis, where I can actually fly on a Firefly or the Serenity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But then they also have this school, so people are learning, he's learning Latin, which we get into later. But
Yes.
there's also, he explains that there is a level of classism in there even still, because he can't afford
Totally.
to go off world,
Skins.
so he
Yeah.
can't level up to compete with the other egg hunters, which we'll get into. We should get into that whole thing, because that's kind of the point of the
Really
story,
quickly with
but-
Wade though,
yeah.
like I did a course about fantasy writing and like the kind of tropes that people always fall into. Orphan child, who's, usually it's either are they the chosen one?
It's like the hero's journey, yeah.
That's exactly what it is. Harry Potter is exactly this as well. But I want to know, did you feel that when it was like, I'm poor, everyone hates me, I'm all alone, I have no friends, my only friend is an old woman who, takes pity on me, and, my parents died,
And a rich
now
kid.
I'm thrust into this? Were you like, we've seen this before? Or are you like, let's give it a go?
I think most stories end up falling into some of those tropes anyway, and I think
I think it's like 7 and that's it.
really.
Yeah, and no matter which way, how you
Yeah.
tell the
Oh yeah.
story,
Yeah.
it falls
7
into-
types. Yeah. Exactly. And so I think it's the same thing. Like if you have a prequel or stuff like that, it's not necessarily about the originality of the structure of it. It's about,
The
I mean, for me, it's
execution.
about the characters. It's about the execution.
Yeah.
It's about the themes that we're playing with, which is already, we've got such a wealth of like what privacy means and what control means and all of those things. So I think that that's a good framework to build something off of. So even while I did notice that, and I was like, oh, poor
Yeah.
Wade. But also I think too, you mentioned that, we meet the best friend, we meet the girl, which we should Need to talk
Okay.
about Artemis
We'll talk
later.
about Artemis.
But it does
Artemis.
feel
It
you
was a
get the
checklist.
It's but you get the he references John Hughes a million times. I mean, that's this is a John Hughes story. He's the nerdy guy that's put upon that hopefully gets the girl and gets to win, goes on this adventure that
And
helps
has-
one
their
of
best
the same.
friend.
And
Yeah.
has a good-looking bully who picked on him for a second in high school, but he was
they mention
more
Revenge
clever
of the
than him.
Nerds. I mean, this is the classic 80s. It's something that we talk about at Nerdist of we try to be super inclusive and make sure that even if you don't know all these references, even if you're just getting into comics, you can join us. You can be a part of this conversation. There's no gatekeeping here.
Yeah.
Because that old school type of nerd, like, maybe wouldn't let girls, there's like this gatekeeping of some, and it's still around
I had a comment today.
on the
I had a comment
internet.
today. Why does this girl feel like she has to try and talk about sci-fi? She's clearly only doing it because she's in a conversation with guys. I had that today. I know there was an audible. Who
was that?
Impressive.
Who
That's
was that?
impressive.
And it's how is that still a thing?
And that's what we need to fight against, but this very much feels pulled from that
Yeah.
that sort of
Yes.
mentality.
And I'll tell you how that's happening. This is almost like the geek's redemption, especially in the 80s when you didn't have the internet. All you had
Yep.
was retained knowledge. You couldn't be like, oh, I remember the episode of got it. And I feel like here, like the jocks are always trying to start something. It happened twice in 2 chapters where he goes to his public school online and straight away, boom, there was a quip from someone and he had the quick return and it was like, you know what, I know that sucks, but I had to do it.
oh yeah,
and
he's
then
like, I know it's low, but it's high
but
school.
this is what you have to do. And it's
Yeah.
like, is it?
Yeah. Oh, great,
But
you're a
he
dick.
is a
Great.
high school senior.
I don't know, that's not how
Yeah.
high school went. And then straight away into the headquarters, it was like, hey, let's talk about things we love. Yeah. And someone
then-
comes in
and
and goes,
then-
do you
yeah.
actually know about this? Do I know that. And the next thing, boom. And they're like, oh, you're a god. And he's like, right. And I'm reading this
Yeah.
being like,
Yeah.
this is Ernest Klein being like, suck on that, bitches. Like, this is
I
totally
wrote a movie. Then I wrote a book and sold it as a movie.
Spielberg's directing it. And it's
All that useless shit I remembered, it's making me money now.
Exactly. And I've interviewed
Get
Ernest
it?
Klein, and he's a lovely, lovely guy. But it's so
Does it
obvious
sound like
the
that?
second time. Yeah.
It was a perfect.
The
Yeah.
second time reading it, it's knowledge is power. Knowledge is
Yes.
popularity. Knowledge is what you need. And if you can retain these useless things and serve it back to someone, that means you are cool to me.
I
Even-
hope that he uses knowledge in the future, because I do think that like learning about yourself, learning how to solve problems, like that could be in here in the book where it's more than just because there's a reason. Because okay, so here's something that you brought up. So we've got this quest. Briefly, you guys have read it, so you basically know what happens. But basically, they're looking for this Easter egg in the Oasis to inherit control of Oasis
Yes.
and all of Holliday's.
It's $240
Fortune.
billion.
Yeah.
Something ridiculous like that.
And there's a corporation that's trying to gain control of this so that they can monetize
Yes.
Oasis, which would make it so that obviously we don't get these free libraries, we don't get all of this
And the
great
rich
access.
get richer and the poor get poorer.
Exactly, which we all know is not a good thing. So then you have this this mission that everyone's been on for years and years and years. And one of the things was that you were saying was 4 or 5 years and no one has solved it. Why is he the one? And I hope that in this we figure out that there is he's not just the chosen one, but it's just he is using this in a certain way. It's I feel like it's supposed to
gotta
be
lean-
someone like this.
They got to lean more into the Willy Wonka side of the story.
Yeah.
Because Charlie got that because he was like the best person, right? That's the point of that story.
I said, good day, sir.
You're a good person, so you will be rewarded for being a good person and stay a good person. And when he was chewed out and yelled at, he's like, okay, I guess I didn't get, like, he didn't throw a fit. He didn't, I hope they lean more into that of like, he specifically programmed it so that an 18-year-old or a kid in high school
Which is what you were saying.
was going to win this because all adults suck. I'm really hoping that's what Halliday's plan was as the Willy Wonka character of this world of like, I got to give it to the youth because they're kind of innocent and they will be able to fix the world because everybody else who's an adult doesn't want to fix the world. They just want to see it burn. They just want to get money.
They want to
and
make money.
They want to make money.
I know that Halliday's like biggest pet peeve is greed. He thinks the whole world is fueled by this greed that he wants nothing to do with.
And
He's not a
yet-
big fan of it.
Was somebody who was in possession of $240 billion.
Yes, there's
And
still
there's
immense
so
poverty.
much immense poverty in the United States. It's like,
Which is funny, like when you do see the first interaction with Artemis and Wade, which we'll get into, one of the questions she asks, she almost challenges his integrity.
Yes.
What are you going to do with the prize money? What would you do? And he's like, no, I'm going to build a space station and lots of food, and I'll just send everyone up, and I'm going to play video games all day long in my little happy space.
And this
And
planet's done, and we're done. I'm really hoping that the girl character doesn't
she's like,
like
"Well,
fix him.
famine."
I'm really hoping that it's not a manic pixie dream girl that tells him like, be a
That
good
was one of
person,
my
be a good person,
questions
Wade,
was-
and then he's going to learn how to be. It's like I hope Wade figures it out on his own, and I hope that Halliday's whole mission was a way to do that. That Halliday saw the way the world was going, and he wanted to pull back. And maybe, there's great things about the 80s. There's amazing things about the 80s, and I think that there was a feeling of young people, like in many decades, of young people figuring out who they were and looking forward to a brighter future. I think that you can say that for a lot of the media that was coming from the 80s. A lot of John Hughes type stuff, movies, television shows. Star Trek: The Next Generation was in the 80s.
Stand By Me,
Stand By
all
Me.
the-
There's lots of things about young people going, you need to be good, stay good, and then make the future better.
now it's instantaneous impact.
Instantaneous impact in the media? Is that what you're saying? Like movies today are all about instantaneous impact? Like Captain Kirk is immediately captain
Yeah,
of the Enterprise
there's
and
no
saves the world
journey.
immediately, and it's not an earned thing. To just go back a little bit, the character of Wade, who had the alliterative first name and last name, which my first thing was like, that's comic book. And then when they
Yeah.
revealed that his dad, who got his mom pregnant, and they never were in love or married or anything, loved comics, but then got killed because he was like robbing a liquor store, and that's why he named his son that, because he liked comics. I went, all right, well done, well played. Okay, I'm still in it. I'm still in it. But that character is not doing anything for me. He seems too cliched. He seems too much like cookie cutter that we're supposed to fit into his character. And again, the only reason he's not a dick is just because there's a bigger bully in his world. Otherwise, like, you're a dick too. Like, you're a dick. Like, I know you got a crap life, but
Yeah,
it's
this kid has, it sounds like he's got a really solid head on his shoulders.
Yes.
Like he
Yeah.
wants to get good grades, even though it's not really happening. He's trying really hard, even though he shouldn't really.
And I understand
this kid
being,
should have a
you
needle
know-
in his arm. Like, let's be honest. Because that's what he saw. His
Yeah.
mum's in the other room
Yeah.
doing sex talking for money, like to make ends meet. She's trying, but at the same time, like she was dealt a terrible card. He was dealt just
The
as bad a
worst.
card.
The worst.
And yet everything's great. He's got a positive attitude. That doesn't really.
I
I mean, the psychological side of things, he
the
would be not in a good way.
the thing that has been drawing me into the book and made me really, really like this first section thus far is the world.
Yeah.
Is the fact that they're setting up this horrendous future where nobody gives a shit and the only escape is Facebook, I mean the Oasis. And you're just like, man, this is idiocracy levels of calling it out. Like,
Yeah.
this is going to be, the only thing that's inaccurate is that there's no reference to a Star Wars movie beyond the prequels.
Yeah.
Which is like a real easy fix, Ernie. You just got to go in there and
My
we'll
bad.
get to that part.
My
But where he goes, Halliman, what's the guy's
Halliday.
name?
Halliday.
Halliday described the holy trilogies, including Indiana Jones, and at one point he pretended that any Indiana Jones movie from Kingdom of the Crystal Skull on didn't exist, and I agree with him. And they still got Steven Spielberg to direct this movie, so well done, well done. But other than that, everything in the real world is super accurate. And the fact that you have to have money to be able to
scary.
fly around the digital world and go to the Star Trek land and Middle Earth and all these is super accurate. So I'm with the world 100%. This
Yeah.
main character's not doing it for me. Can we talk about the female character, Artemis?
Let's do it. So a little bit of
get
setup
into
for
it.
this one. He finds the first tomb, which has the copper key. He makes it in there. He blitzes through it like it was nothing.
And the first time.
It's because it's a
Not
book.
because he's the chosen one.
It's not a. I mean, we're not playing this as if this was Ready Player One, the video game. No, we wouldn't have, as the character
I
gotten through
wish
that the
he'd
first
done
time.
like
You know, it's a
had to
shortcut.
do like a second.
But he couldn't because someone had been there every single night for the last 2 weeks trying to
true.
get in there, and that is Artemis, the same girl whose blog he looks up every single morning, who he's cyber in love with.
Oh man.
And
But
now
it's
they
okay
meet
because
in
he's,
real life.
because he's not gross about it. And also it's cool because he doesn't like super tall chicks with like big boobs. Like, he likes them curvy. And it's cool because she's real pretty, but she's not like too pretty. Like,
Yeah.
she's approachably pretty and she's
and
super
out of
cute.
the 6 or
And
7
like
billion
she's got
people
like
in
an
the world at this
adorable,
time,
yeah.
So
it just
adorable.
happens to be
Yeah.
her that does it.
Well, because, they have every single thing in common and like she's really good.
Yeah.
She's a real good
She's
gamer.
got a dorky laugh and like
Yeah.
she's not too put on
Yeah.
and she rambles when she's nervous just like him.
And even though you can make yourself look like anything, she's still making herself look like herself, at least as far as Wade's concerned. And he's like going to hold on to that hope. So he's not gross about it, Matt. So like, it's for real true love. Like, it's like he for real loves her. And once she gets to know him, then she will fall in love with him too. Like, she'll want to hang out with him. Like, it makes perfect sense. It's great.
The
It's
only problem at
great.
the moment is that she is incredibly competitive, and this isn't just a game for her. This is it. Like, there are gunters. I really can't say that word.
what does it sound like?
A gunt.
What's a gunt?
When you drop your gut drops to your
Oh,
Australians are the best. That's great.
Yep.
We call that a
fupa.
fupa.
Yeah.
That's right.
Found out about that one, didn't I? Because I
Front-
used gunt and
front-
offended a lot of people.
Front upper pouch area is what we'll call it. Front upper pouch area.
But the gunters, and it's $240 billion. And if this is a kid who's lived in poverty his whole life, a
Why
pretty
does-
girl debunks all
No,
of that. A
yeah.
pretty girl just goes, you know what? I'll give you a clue. I'll
Yeah.
help you because
go on the other side of the.
that part in
that
your
pissed
hair
me.
is just making my
Oh,
thought-
that actually made perfect sense to me.
What?
Because this kid was raised on Revenge of the Nerds. Because if we can talk about 80s pop culture for a
Yeah.
second, here's the bad thing about 80s pop culture.
Yes.
From 1980 to 1989, all of the movies were about young, oppressed nerds getting the girl.
Weird Science.
And that is an awful message because that shit does not happen.
Yeah.
That is not how the world works. So
It's also objectifying and making this like a creature, like something to be
a
attained.
prize to be won.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
she is worth more than $240 billion.
Huh.
And she's not even nice initially. Like what we're seeing right now. She's incredibly defensive. She doesn't care for him at all. She is manipulating him to get information.
That's why I liked her in the beginning. But then when she was nice and they were chatting, I was like, don't be friends with him.
Yep.
Go get that clue.
But because you're
Yes, we're
guy,
weighed, yeah.
Man,
And also,
grew up on the 80s.
he grew up on that stuff. He's 18, so he doesn't know jack ass about anything.
Yeah.
And
a
also,
kid who has lived on food stamps his
Sure.
whole life knows $240 billion.
but again, he escapes into reruns of Family Ties. So this is not a person who's living in the real world. And that's the thing I love about this book and hate about this book. I'm reading this and I'm going, I love pop culture. I love it. And I have loved it since I was 5 years old. And I have been submerged in the world of comic books, and I have stupid arcane facts in there that I should not have, but have now been able to make me money because I'm getting
Yes.
hired in ridiculous places here in Los Angeles to go, hey, come and talk about this stuff.
Yep.
It's valuable now. They're making movies that are making billions of dollars. Because
You
when I
should
was
have written a
5,
book,
I
Hector.
should have written a book. But when I was 5, I was like, hey, they should make movies of the stuff I love. It would make $1 billion. Like, I knew this stuff was amazing. So the problem is that this kid is retreating too much into pop culture, and as I'm reading it, I am asking myself if I do the same.
Yeah.
And I feel like the reason that when I was a kid, I wanted to be president. I wanted to be president of the United
I'd
States.
vote for you.
And when I
would
learned,
so vote for
when
you.
I thank you so much. And when
That's
I
not
learned
saying
that
much.
politicians were pieces of shit, I went, nope, I'm not going to do that. Now I wanted to. My dream then became I want to work on a cartoon show. Because when I was a kid, cartoons, things like Animaniacs and Batman the Animated Series, affected me so deeply that I believed I became a good person because of that, in part because of what I was observing and absorbing, and comic books as well. I didn't have religion growing up. I didn't read the Bible. I didn't get morals really from my parents, but I got it from television, and I get some from my parents, but television and comic books. And with great power comes great responsibility. And a bunch of old Jewish dudes in the 60s and earlier were giving me religious stories with colorful costumed men and women. And that's how I learned to be a good person. But when I decided I don't want to be a politician, I'd rather work on a cartoon show because I want to affect kids the way I was affected. That's better. I don't want to deal with adults. They're gone. They're ruined. You know, we grew up with the Monica Lewinsky scam, and it just got worse from there.
Yeah.
Politicians are the worst people on earth. We
That
now,
seems
all of
tame
us
now.
know. It's all too true. But with last year, with the fact that Donald Trump got elected, I went, maybe I was too uninformed or uninvolved. And maybe a lot of us are too uninformed and uninvolved. And there's no problem with loving this stuff. But if you do what this book is doing and tell us a character like Halliday has so much power, so much influence that he goes, now all of the world will become obsessed with the 80s and I'm out. That's a lot of power.
Yeah.
And the 80s was not super stellar unless you were a nerdy white guy, a nerdy straight white guy in media. In which case, 80s is your sweet spot. But for me, I'm like I remember when I thought that Revenge of the Nerds was gross. I remember when I would watch it and not think it was gross, and then when I did.
It's
And
a little rapey.
it's the
It's
most
super
a character literally rapes somebody in that movie. It's like it's
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah.
But
Back
it's,
then you're like, one day.
so I'm reading this and I'm like, this is super fun. I'm really, really enjoying this, and I feel guilty. I feel guilty that I have submerge myself in this world as a means of escapism, absolutely, but also because I'm like, the world is so shit. I think the way to fix the world is through stories and through storytelling, and that would be my hope. But it's like, but that didn't even work because everybody sucks, and maybe people will take the wrong things from stories, and that's kind of, I guess that turned into a rant about this book and how
No,
I
I think
feel
it's- This is
about
what
it.
it's
But it's
bringing
what
up.
it's about, and I got a lot of that towards the end when he got into the dungeon. Up until then, I was with it. I'm like, the world is fantastic. I totally get this. But when he got into the dungeon and when he
blitzed it?
interacted with Artemis, I was like, I think I know. I just, it felt very much like a cliche movie.
His
with the
interaction
romance.
with her is very, it's very like the geek from John
Yeah.
Hughes movies.
Yeah.
But I do think that, so we've got many more. Honestly, I mean, I remember the arc of the book, but I'm picking up a lot now reading it. I hope that as we get into it and we learn more about the characters, because we're only a fourth in and we're already like first clue. So there's
Yeah.
a lot more to happen, I
Sure.
think, going on. But I hope too that there are good things to be found in this book and in this world, and there are
Absolutely.
bad things to be found in it. And I totally agree with you. Like there's this idea that like that 80s nerd is that archetype is the one that bullies people online. That is the one that, you know, and so it's learning hopefully through this book that there are real people, everyone can be involved in this, and hopefully that, I think Artemis's plan is awesome, that she wants to share that with the whole
End
world.
famine.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you want. That's the problem. That's the big picture. That's what they spent the first 3 chapters building, that there's big problems to be fixed, and she actually wants to fix it.
Yeah.
And
I think it is saying that there's people that crave anonymity, crave it for all the wrong reasons. They crave it to be the person that they couldn't be,
And that's
the one
it's
that
not
can.
even their fault. And it's not even their fault. That's the worst thing, is that I don't even feel, I feel for Wade. I think he's a dick, but it's also like the book did a really good job of setting up exactly why he is the way
Yeah,
that he is.
yeah.
And he's not offensive. He's not vulgar. He's not, well, he's a little vulgar, but he's not like mean. You know, he's not a bad person because
Yeah,
we're
he's not-
spending,
yeah, he's
we're
not
and
spending
there's room
time.
to grow. I mean, this is, if this is a hero's journey for him,
Yeah.
there are lessons to be learned here about responsibility when you inherit something like that, something that maybe Holiday never learned, that he closed himself off and he wanted to build something to share with him, but then he kind of disappeared for the last few years of his life. They're saying that he was a recluse. No one knows what happened to
Yeah.
him
15
during
years,
those
yeah.
years. So what was happening to him? Why did he close this off? Why didn't he trust anyone to do that? And how do you avoid getting so hardened by the world around you that you don't think that much money and power can make a difference and good in the world?
Yeah, it means the world's not worth saving.
Yeah. And so what does that mean? And create your own world, but is that the right thing to do?
In the chat, is there any way we can go back up to something Patch said, which was really quite brilliant? He said
really-
something and then everyone just went, yes!
I really like what Dark Aardvark said. I think that Wade breezed through the first one because the story needed a reason for him to stand out to Artemis. I totally could see that. I totally could see that. And I think just for the efficiency of the story, you know, they did a good job of setting up the joust game, which is really cool. I just played Joust in an arcade in New York
really?
over the break at
Oh,
like
cool.
at a barcade.
No way.
And, me and
Before
my-
reading this?
Before reading this, completely. So me and my girlfriend were playing Joust for the first time, and I was familiar with it. She had no idea. She's like, "What is this? Is weird." I'm like, "Yeah, this is the weirdest game ever. You're on ostriches and you do the thing." So reading that, I really enjoyed that part, and I love the imagery of the Lich King or whatever, the Lich King going, "Ah, good game," like hitting the thing, being like, "Ah, damn it, good game." Like that was great. I love that.
The world building is so good, and I really hope that Spielberg, I mean, I never thought they could make this into a
No,
movie
I
because
still
of
don't know
all
how.
the...
Oh, I'm gonna hate the movie, and I have you guys to blame because I'm reading this book for the first time
have
before I
them
see
to
the movie,
blame.
and I'm
They
like, "Oh,
voted.
you guys, I'm gonna hate it." I'm gonna
We're
hate it
glad
so
that you
much.
picked this one. This is a fun one to talk about.
But there's the Patch comment.
Yeah, Patch in the chat said, this is a book that continues to, oh no!
Wait, stand by, everybody. Stand by.
This is
There
a
we go.
book that continues to exploit and show the trappings of culture and possession. On the edge of our seats with this
We-
one.
we got it.
Culture and possession at the expense of community and humanity.
Yeah.
That's
so
brilliant.
It's so
Patch.
indulgent, isn't it?
Yes.
This is very indulgent, which is why I loved it.
Yeah.
The first time
It's so much fun.
I read it, and when I tweeted out today that we were reading this, 95% of my feed was like, "This is the best book. I love it.
It's
I
so
love
much
it."
fun.
And I'm like, "Yes, you are my people." And then one person's like, "You know what? No." And I'm like, "Why? And reading it again, I'm like, "Oh yeah, no, yeah."
I think it's the
it makes me
time,
feel
too.
guilty because I feel like I'm sacrificing humanity and community.
No, I.
Because of,
oh, you
you
do.
know.
I was like, thank you. This is really like coaxing me back into why I escape. And thanks for being another way to escape what's going on
Sure.
by, you know, the inception of escapism within this book, within that book.
Yeah,
And they keep going.
It's very meta. Yeah.
But I do feel like reading it right now, if we had read this book 6 months ago,
For sure.
different
A
year
year ago and 2
absolutely.
years ago.
Oh
I
my
read
God!
It.
A
And now
totally different. I think it's
Yeah.
it's the weight of something that I think a lot of people are going through right now, which is, well, I thought everything was terrible, so I didn't want to engage. Like I actively would not engage or argue with people because I was like, well, I'm not going to change their mind, and I think that that is a horrible viewpoint of blah 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 blah. And so I think that we're now in this place where I think there can be a middle ground. I think we should use places that champion pop culture to be inclusive, to find other. That's something that we really try to do here at Nerdist and Geek and Sundry, is to make sure that we're hearing different voices, we're letting people in, we're not just catering to one type of fan, and that we're having larger conversations about what representation means in culture. I saw, you know, the Diego Luna stuff that you
Oh,
shared
so
out the
that's
other
gonna
day.
make me
I
cry.
mean,
It was
it was amazing. And so I think there is because after the election I thought, well, what am I doing? Like why am I doing my job? And I think that you can find power in connecting with other people and finding ways to.
Yes.
We've already talked about so many things and personal experiences just in this book club so far about how we identify with characters and how we communicate with other people, and we're talking about it now. So I think there is power in that. We just have to be aware of it, and everyone is hyper aware of it right now. So it's good that we're reading it right now, even
I
if
think
it's
It's a very different
bleak.
book.
It's great.
bleak.
Yeah. It's almost like I want to prevent this future.
Yes.
But I
Yeah.
also still want there
But we're
to be
sliding straight into it,
straight
going,
into it.
ha
But I still
ha!
want there to be something
With my
like the
vocal
Oasis.
blade.
Yes.
When I was a child, my idea of heaven was that there would be every book, every movie, every comic book, and it would be at my fingertips. And literally now we have that. Like
it's
there's
the library in Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, and we have that now.
Obsessed.
You know, I wanted to be on the Starship Enterprise not because we're flying through space, but that part of it, but mostly because it had every movie and comic book and TV show in their computers, in their databanks. It's all there. It's the future. Everything's, you know, on a drive this big, and I love that idea. And I've lost my train of thought. But
You okay? I'm
But I
going
wanna
to
prevent the
tell you
future.
something that's going to destroy you and crush you, and it kind of Wade tapped in on it as well. The amount of stuff out there in the world that you want to see, you cannot actually physically do it in your lifetime.
yes, I know.
You can't consume
It's
it
so
all.
sad.
You
It's so
cannot do
sad.
it.
That is the most unrealistic thing about this story so far.
Oh,
is
when
that
he's
Wade
saying I
said-
watched
three
Yeah,
times.
yeah,
It's like,
I
no,
know.
you didn't. You had a list to get through that was as long as your entire body.
Yeah, why are you watching this one 3 times if you've got other things that you still have to read?
You want to be the best?
Which thing did he say
Others
you
wouldn't
watched
have done
3
that.
times? Family Ties?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
a couple
all
other
180
ones where
episodes.
like
180.
he loves like Lady Hawk and
Yeah.
all
I
that
watched
stuff.
it so many
but-
times. It's like, well,
But don't you have other stuff to watch
a
and
long
read? I bet you do.
He
maybe
tries
that'll
he
come up
tries
in
to
the
say,
book.
well, when you
That's
don't
true.
have a life, 12 hours a day. I'm like, no, dude, even then, it's physically impossible
Yeah.
to watch all of every episode of Star Trek, every cartoon of G.I. Joe, Schoolhouse Rock, He-Man, Conan the
Simpsons.
Barbarian, Land of the Lost, Simpsons, all these movies, every book. And by the way, is there any female authors in this list that he just rambled through?
No.
I didn't think so. I thought I saw Rowling in there. I was like, okay,
maybe.
Rowling. No, she's not in there.
Oh, she's
and it's rolling.
Rowling, J.K. Rowling,
Yeah, I'm
J.K.
sorry.
Just kidding.
Just
It's
rolling
Rowling.
with your homies, man.
J.K.
That's all.
Rowling. There's a joke that should help me remember that. Douglas Adams, Kurt Vonnegut, Neil Stephenson,
Did you also do a checklist though? Was it
Richard
yeah.
K. Morgan, Stephen King, Orson Scott Card, Terry Pratchett, Terry Brooks, Bester, Bradbury, Haldeman, Heinlein, Tolkien, Vance, Gibson, Gaiman, Sterling, Moorcock, Scalzi,
I'm
Zelanzi.
sorry. What more cock?
I don't know.
That's enough from you.
But no, Rowling.
Well, it is that time again. This is what we do at the end of every single episode. We challenge you, if you accept to do it, to read the next part of the book. We are going up to chapter 21. So just the next 10 chapters, finish at chapter 21. So read to chapter 20. With that one, we'll be talking about themes as well. But, you know, we want to hear from you. You guys are saying some great things in the chat, and we love that we can communicate these sorts of thoughts with you as well. So come back next week. Same time, we'll be here.
Mm-hmm.
And also, we are always looking forward to our next book. I mean, you keep reading all of the ones that are suggested anyway, so it's almost
Yeah.
redundant what you suggest. If you've got any recommendations, though, hit us up. You can say it on the chat. You can tweet at us at Nerdist, at Geek and Sundry, or join Team Alpha with the hashtag Alpha Book Club.
That's
Get those
this.
recommendations in. I'm running out as well because I'm so consumed with this one. Thank you, Hector.
Oh my gosh, thank you guys so much for listening to me ramble. I'm liking the book. Not loving it, but we'll see what happens next time.
And thank you, Rachel.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm so glad we're reading this one. I feel like it's super timely and fun.
I always say my best stuff to you before we start the show. My name is Maud. We'll be back next week. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.